All right, welcome to the Jack Squared podcast with your hosts, Jack Milliken, and next to me, Jack Ryan. We are here today with Phill Menendez, and he's running for Alderman for the 2nd Ward of City of St. Louis. We're going to get right into it. Phill, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So today, I think maybe you wanted to start off, Jack, with some questions.
Yeah, I'll start off. I've got a few questions. Phill, local guy, Bishop DeBerg graduate. Just like any of us, we're gonna ask you a couple St. Louis related questions here, right?
All right.
All right, so you get to keep 3 of these, all right? Toasted Ravs, St. Louis style pizza, gooey butter cake, pork steaks. So you got to get rid of one.
Have to get rid of one?
Yeah, you got to get rid of one. T-Ravs, St. Louis style pizza, gooey butter cake, pork steaks.
All right, I'd probably have, it's a tough decision, but I'd have to get rid of the pizza.
Get rid of the pizza, huh? The St. Louis style? All right, right into the next. This goes right into the pizza here. You get a 2-topping from Emos, okay? What 2 toppings you going with? And then are you going well done?
Pepperoni sausage, throw a little bit of peppers on there.
A little veggie.
And not well done.
Not well done, just how it comes, huh?
Right.
All right, we talked about this beforehand. Favorite Cardinal of all time?
I'm going to go with Keith Hernandez back in the 80s.
Good-looking guy. Had the mustache, right?
Yeah.
Had the mustache.
Maybe because it sound like Menendez, Hernandez.
There you go.
You know?
Okay, favorite St. Louis sports moment?
Would have to be, I did to say every Friday night in the 80s when we went to the St. Louis Steamers all the time at the old arena. You know, we would be the fans that showed up every Friday, walked around, and pretty diehard, but it was great times.
That's nice. Wait, where'd they play at?
At the arena, way before your time, down out in Dogtown, used to be called the Checker Dome.
Huh, okay. Trying to act like I know what that is right now.
Right. Between your parents would drop you off and pick you up about 1 a.m. because I forgot about you with no concerns.
All right, 2 more. You're taking a walk in Forest Park, right?
All right.
Is it better in the spring or in the fall? I really thought about that one.
I like the spring.
Go in the spring, everything's kind of blooming, you know?
Right.
Coming alive.
A little warm.
All right, last one before we get into this. This goes to show how much I add to the podcast here. This is a tough one. What's the best podcast in St. Louis? I'm blaming. All right, that's all I got.
Beautiful. Yeah, and we'll just keep it going, man. So maybe getting the meat and potatoes here. So you graduated, or you were from the academy with my dad in 91, is that correct?
That is correct.
You guys sat next to each other, 93?
We did. Yes. When I grew up with your Uncle Brian.
So 18 years old, you went straight there from high school. What made you want to become a police officer to start?
Well, it all started my junior year in Bishop DeBerg. It was an elective class I took called You and the Law. And there was 2 police officers that showed up with their crisp uniforms on. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it stood out to me in high school. And they came from a busier district, and they had said what they did throughout their day in the communities that they were serving. And literally from then on, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, was be a police officer.
Really? So you weren't scared of going into it? Was there any nervousness to it, or were you more excitement than anything?
More excitement than anything.
Wow.
Right.
Man. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so why don't we just maybe get your background a little bit, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So 93 to 2012?
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
Just if you can give us kind of a general overview, what was that like? I mean, once you were on, what was that like, your time on?
Well, started off in 94. I was probably 165 at the time, and got put in one of the toughest neighborhoods of the city at that time, called McCreetown, which is known as Botanical Heights now. It was in South City. I started off in the 3rd District, spent approximately 3 years there in McCreetown, and then went to the Detective Bureau in the South Patrol, where I handled robberies, burglaries, assaults.
How far into your time was that?
Probably 3-4 years. It was in probably 97.
Okay. And did you, I mean, how did you separate yourself as a police officer? I think the general perspective of police today is all bad or all good, and there's not a whole lot of nuance. But for yourself, how did you separate yourself and kind of try to really help the community?
Well, it all started from just growing up from my mom and dad, the way they taught me how to be, how to treat people, and how you want to be treated. You work hard for everything you want. There's nothing free in this world, and there's consequences that you're going to have to be accountable for your actions. So just by growing up with my parents always, and to be a leader, it's very easy to be on the schoolyard when the bullies are out in front bullying that one person, maybe because he has floods on and everyone behind him is laughing because they're not the ones being made fun of. My dad said you have no idea what their family's going through or why he has those floods on, that I better, no matter what my size or what the count of people are, I better be out there with him, sticking up for him, because, with the bully. So if I went home and he found out I did not do something like that, then I would be in trouble, whether being from 10 years old on. And I knew the consequences of that. And then later I knew what he was finally telling me to do, to be a leader, not a follower. And when you hear that your whole life growing up with the family system that I had, it makes you a better person to deal with the stuff I had to deal with. But I love people, love being in the community, even as in high school, by working in restaurants, working for my parents. They were wallpaper hanger and painters. Since I was 6 years old, I was always going to job sites with them. And from just driving down the street, seeing there used to be a guy that was always was at the corner of like Gravois and Grand called, Bucket Joe or Gravois Joe, and he's always begging for money, and we'd always drive down, and of course he'd always say that's why you need to stay in school or you could be like him on the street corner. But at the end of the day, he didn't look at their financial background, whether if they were rich or poor. You just treated everyone as if we put our pants on the same way every morning. So when I became a police officer, it was easy for me to communicate with the neighborhoods that I patrolled in. Like I said, I didn't have to, I could have put 8 hours in and easily came home to where I was from, at that time, near Our Lady of Sorrows or Bishop de Burgh. But I didn't. I spent most of my time, like my community became McCreetown. I was out there trying to help the little kids, trying to be a role model, trying to tell them there's other things you could be doing instead of hanging on the streets and doing wrong. Help the grandparents out, help the mom and dads who needed help on just direction or jobs, or, my life became the community that I patrolled in McCreetown.
Yeah, you see, like, there's a lot of these videos of these police officers off duty, still make an impact in the community. Like, see them on Instagram, guys are doing push-up contests with these kids or playing sports or whatever it is.
Right.
And obviously I don't know anything about it, but just seeing that stuff, I'm like, man, those are the guys who really felt the calling to do more than they're asked for, go above and beyond. So you kind of feel that when you first start as a young kid, you're like, I've had success, or I'm a social guy, you got a good sense of humor, right? But like, did you always have that calling to be like, man, I need to do more, and I like kind of wanting to kind of make a change or connect with a lot of people and stuff? Is that kind of how you felt?
I did, and you do it, and you don't know you're doing it. There's times sort of best feelings, like I could be at, let's just say, Hodak's Chicken, a restaurant, on the south side, and my kids would be there, and a guy come up behind me and say, hey, are you Officer Menendez? And it's like, oh, great, what's this going to be? What's this going to be about? But he would bring up a positive that he remembered when he was a kid. Now, he lives in the county because he doesn't want his kids growing up in the city being in the same life as that he was in. But now my two sons are looking at the guy, that has all the tats on the face and, gold in his mouth, but he's talking to me and says, hey, you did make an impact, or there was a difference that one day when you said this. Not that I remember, but now my boys got to see, hopefully I was, the leader like my dad was and taught me to my kids. And they see that, and then when they see strangers coming up to you in public place and say that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they know Pop was the guy back in his day, huh? It's like, right. I'll see my dad, and someone will run into him from like his workout days or something like that, and kind of talk to him like he's still a young guy, and I'm like, Okay. I'm like, Pop used to have it, huh? Because see him as this old timer, you know, and
Right. Get a little street cred.
yeah, exactly.
So it seems like there's multiple types of people that are trying to join the police force, and what do you think is the solution? What, maybe it's training, I don't know what it is, but for the people that don't have that foundation that you have, how do you pick good police officers? How do you make good police officers?
I don't know if you could make them, you could train them, but a lot, even if they don't have, they still have to have, maybe there's someone in their life that they looked up to, whether it's the mom, the dad, both, grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, or a friend, or someone within the community, a coach or something. So that really helps out. And it's kind of, you're either a police officer or you're not. Like, if you're waiting, I had guys in the academy that they were just called before their other job, which was Sears, or another store called them in, and they showed up at the police academy. Well, you'll find out the first year if this is what you really want to do. Is your heart there? Do you really want to be out in the community and do what the calling is for a police officer, and for zero amount of dollars to do it for? Because your success on the police force, I always say, like for myself, I was probably one of the richest guys in the world. And when I first started, I don't think we even made over $24,000, you know, and then it went to $30,000. But we worked tons of overtime, but we weren't doing it for the money. We were doing it because we just loved being out on the streets and in the communities and helping out. But they do need to have, they need to weed people out. You know, you just can't have anyone. They're not doing anything proactive to try to get the police officers. For instance, like how I became a police officer, if those officers never came to the burg to talk, maybe I did something else. Maybe I went into the family trade. Maybe I went to college. Maybe I did, you know, something else besides that. So that made a difference. And when you have the police officers going out, whether being a coach through the PAL Athletic League, which I've done for like 7-8 years for my kids, and got several kids throughout the entire city of St. Louis on our teams, and we'd go to Afton or Veta Soccer, you know, and so when those kids see someone who they're like, man, that's what I'd like to do, you know, on being a police officer. So I think they need to get out in the communities, and there's, I'm not saying the police, I'm talking about the leaders, even our bosses on the police force, letting the police go out and do more with the community. But right now, they're just slammed from call to call. Couple people working the whole entire district, and not being able to really interact with the community. I was lucky. When I came out in the 90s, it was more community policing, community engagement. So we became that community. We didn't want other officers from another neighborhood to come over and handle a call in our neighborhood. That was ours. It was a pride thing too, you know. So with that being said, when I'd pull on the street on a Sunday and they're having a family barbecue in one of the worst parts of the city, but they come out and flag me in a marked police vehicle and then being in uniform and invite you back for the barbecue to get a plate, and no one's jumping fences or, you know, running from you, that the trust is there. And then there's more people than those kids that look and see how the police and the communities interacting, and that's when you get the role models like, man, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, so getting invited to the cookouts probably
that's it.
Probably up there as far as how good it feels to be in the community.
Right.
So we had Chris in here a little bit ago. Was he in the McCree neighborhood?
Yes. Oh no, I'm sorry. He was off of Oakland.
Off of Oakland. How did your guys' relationship start, and how does it develop?
Just met him. You know, he was one of the major players on the street at the time, up in South City. So pretty much what my job was, a police officer, was to keep an eye on guys like Chris at the time, because it's kind of wreaking havoc, part of the havoc in the neighborhoods.
And he's gone on to own his own trucking company now. I mean, how?
He is. He saw the light. He had a chance. He got out of the game. It was pretty much looking at two ways: penitentiary or, the morgue. And it was a rough life, but with people giving him a chance, I'd help out his family when even the school systems would fail. He was asking for help on with family, with like kind of direction living, instead of always saying, hey, you're that bad person out here. You know, it saw different avenues in people. It just wasn't the good guys, bad guys. You know, it was a cat and mouse game. They knew their game and we knew what we had to do, but then it wasn't personal. But then it did on a way, because if we could get these guys to change and see a different avenue, because a lot of them never even left the street, their blocks before, that there's more stuff out there besides just this 100 block, and you could get it and it's right there. You just need to put the effort, as much effort you're going the wrong way, put it the positive way, that there could be a change, and that's what he did. So yeah, both of his kids graduated college, and his daughter's getting her doctor's degree, and he owns his own business now, and you know, it's a success story. It's pretty cool.
It's you know, sir, I know you're a humble guy. You don't want to take all the credit, because credit's due where credit's due. But it's just it shows what a good police officer, how he or she can impact the community if it's just done correctly, and that's exactly what that story is. If you're open to it, would you walk us through your injury as a police officer, and as much detail as you're willing to go into?
Sure. Well, it was back in 2008. I was assigned to narcotics at the time, and we were executing a search warrant over in the Shaw neighborhood. It was for a marijuana grow that a subject had. We went there, and it was a successful grow. It was probably 500 plus plants. We're in the house, and we had to disassemble it and seize it all as evidence. And I was in a room adjacent to the room where the grow was, and there was a generator which had electric feeding the grow room, but you couldn't tell that it was unless you tore the ceiling down. But there was a wire going into the room, and it wasn't connected to anything. But the wire that was in the ceiling above me, I was holding the generator at my chest, and I was probably about 205 pounds at the time. I was in shape, always at the gym, which would later, I think it's what helped me, still be here today. I cut the wire, not wanting to rip it down out of the ceiling, and as soon as the knife cut the rubber part, it hit the wire, and then the electric immediately entered my hand, went down to my toes, came back up, went through my eyes, ears, nose, smiled to put 2 cysts on my brain. And it tore my muscles inside up, and then I had a softball-sized sphere that was rotating around my chest stomach for about maybe 10, 11 seconds. I stepped out of my body, talked to myself. I stood right here in front of myself. Conversation was going on in this body, but I could tell you what was behind me, and I never even turned around. And then somehow, miracle of God, I was able to let it go. I think it went through the whole system as if it was like a circuit breaker. And instead of shooting out of my body, it just made the full rounds that it did. And then it later forced me, that's what caused me to leave the job.
So I kind of bring some of your past up to kind of emphasize that, as a police officer, you were the real deal and you were in it, and you were in it. So as a police officer, what do you think being a police officer, being a good police officer, how's that going to help you as an alderman?
I think it's the best traits to have, and the reason why I say it, let's just go back to McCreetown. So I'm assigned to McCreetown in 1994, and it's one of the worst districts or worst neighborhoods in the city at that time. Matter of fact, I think they even broke over 200 homicides for the first time in St. Louis, and the majority happened just within that 4-block neighborhood. And there's other neighborhoods called like Walnut Park, Kevney Courts, and even the high-rise, low-rise Doris Webby projects and stuff. But in McCreetown, the city gave up on all those neighborhoods. They just figured it was crime, I guess, crime infested. They didn't care. They weren't spoken for in City Hall. And they had several abandoned buildings where they weren't boarded up and the kids were playing in. They had a park in McCreetown, and, nothing worked in it. And there was trash all over the place. The grass is higher than the kids. people would come down in the daytime and just take dump trucks, these carpenters and big companies, and just throw trash in the dump truck loads just in the middle of the lots and just drive off. They would bring refrigerators, stoves, big bulk items, and just push them off into the alley and leave. And of course, if you live in something like that, then with all the violence, it's just going to keep getting worse. And you're going to think you're at the lowest because that's how you're treated by everyone else. Well, I used to attend all the neighborhood meetings. And at that time, they were in basements. They weren't in auditoriums. They were in people's houses. They would page me. That's when there was pagers back then. Or call me. It was it's when you could, call a phone that's on your waist and dial your number and call them back.
No Snapchat back then?
No, none of that. When you're in the room, that's it. Or the gangway, yell down the gangway. But I would show up to all those meetings and listen to the concerns of the people in those communities. And I would call City Hall and say, hey, we need this alley cleaned up. And it might be a couple times, but then you finally get the supervisor and say, I'm going to wait here. I want the flatbed truck. We want this cleaned up. I got the parks cleaned up. Got all the trash, removed out of it. Helped the community get the swings, everything back. I was able to get the houses boarded up because the kids were going in there, just wasn't safe. Got the grass cut. Got the cars towed that were abandoned. Everything that the city forgot about, I was able to do because, again, they would call and ask us, and block captains were big at that time, neighborhood stabilization people. And we were the first. So the top of the pecking order would be the alderman. The alderman would call us to take care of their problems so they could call the constituents that it's taken care of. But then the neighborhood stabilization people and the block captains, they were the ones, the boots on the ground, like us, who actually had to take care of the neighborhoods that we were in. And then, so bringing that to the table and all my experience, and I never thought I was going to run for alderman. I mean, I did this as a police officer because I loved it. Like, that was my life. That's where, my community became, my life was McCreetown. Then it was the other parts, the worst parts of the city that I patrolled, throughout my career. And then later this developed because our leaders have been they've been failing us. And I don't want to move out of the city. I was born and raised here for 50 years. But something needs to change, and I figured that I fought the worst fights that the city had back in the 90s all the way up to the time I left, and did positive, successful things. And I know I could bring that to the communities to Ward 2 when I become alderman. And I know I could work with the aldermen and women up north. They're screaming for help. They're screaming for the police, and they don't want our police of our districts. They just want their police also. They don't want our money that is given to us to try to fix the problems in Ward 2. They just want the money that they were offered to fix their wards up there. They know that I've been in Walnut Park. They know that I've been boots on the ground in their neighborhood. Then I'm just not going north to go to City Hall, to the office, and coming back to my ward. So they know they can sit at the table, and I know what their needs and what the help that they need, and I could support them, back them, if not, and help them, on just by being a ward alderman up in the second ward.
Yeah, a guy who's been there is not just kind of, putting on the act in a way or whatever people might say. But yeah, if you've experienced it and you've been there, and as an active policeman who's wanted to restore communities while you're a policeman, still continuing that, then who's a better guy to be able to speak on another neighborhood's half or be able to relate with people and stuff than someone who's been there, right?
Right. And yeah, this is a tough act to play if you're pretending, like going to a neighborhood where, shots are fired all the time, or
right.
The most violent parts of the city are just almost like standing at the dump in some places where just trash all over the place, So, yeah, it's eventually, if you were trying to act that part, it weeds those guys out because they're not going to be able to last a long haul to do what really needs to be done. Or they just put their time and they just come back, to the part of the city that they live in. But more on our city policemen. They're out there trying, every day, doing their best and being involved. There's so many that live on the south side or in our ward, and every day they leave and they patrol the rest of the city as it's their community, and they're doing everything they can, to be part of the community.
I think we kind of touched on it, but sometimes it takes me a second time, a little slow, So what exactly is like the responsibility of alderman?
So responsibility is almost like what I say, with McCreetown. You can't give officers raises. You can't give employees raises. That's for the mayor, the comptroller, and the board of president, or the president of the board of aldermen. Like those are responsible for that. Like I would be able to stand out and talk about how our constituents and everybody wants raises for the police and the employees. But at the end of the day, that's really not in their job description. Their job description is nuisance properties. Let's just say it's kind of like coaching Afton, okay? And I've coached several seasons there. And if I'm the manager, I'm the one that I talk with Afton, I get all the signatures, I get us on at a season, okay? And then if you guys are on my team, if the parents show up, your grandparents show up, maybe they're like, hey, because they're the ones that paid the money, right, for you guys to play. Maybe the field's not in best shape, or maybe there's someone at the concession stand, and they feel with the money they paid, they want something done, to make it better because they're paying good money.
Umpires aren't showing up.
Umpires aren't. So any of that, they want to say something, but really they're not. The people at Afton's, they're not going to listen to them, right? They're going to either put it off or say, oh, we'll take that complaint, but probably never get taken care of. So they come to me. And then I go to the management of Afton and say, listen, we got some concerns. People are complaining about A, B, and C. Can we do something with it? And then that would be my responsibility to try to get some action taken care of. So I could go back to your parents or grandparents or whoever is showing up to all your games to support you to say, hey, I'm on it, and we're going to see if it's taken care of. But then it goes like to you guys where there might be some bullies on the other team saying something or, doing something they shouldn't be doing, but it got your guys' attention and you feel like it needs to be addressed because you don't feel safe for some reason. Okay, maybe it's a guy always throwing line drives at you on purpose and laughing. You know it's on purpose, right? So you got to come to the coach and tell me. And then I go to the ump and say, hey, this isn't right, or this is what's going on, because the ump will listen to what I'm saying and not maybe listen to you. Maybe listen, but when I go out there to the mound or talk to the umpire, then something gets done. So when the residents of a neighborhood, they have a complaint, more of nuisance complaints with refuse, with the trash, with the leaves, with crime, with traffic violations, anything that someone has concerns for in our ward, then that's my job to communicate. First important thing is communication. So just to let you know, hey, Jack, I got your complaint. I'm working on it, and this is what I'm doing. Jack, I can't do this because they're not working with us, but we're going to do something else, because you're coming to me for that problem. And then I'm the one that goes to City Hall and takes care of that problem.
And so, I mean, some people that are watching may not even know if they're even in the second ward. I mean, before we even started talking, I'll be honest, I didn't even know which wards, what are the parameters of the ward 2?
Okay, so it's really big. I kind of talk parishes too, maybe.
Okay. Just
sort of as landmarks. But if you're going from Shrewsbury to Chippewa, so Chippewa, let's say to Hampton, where Target is, and then everything, if you're facing St. Louis County, going south. So now you go south down Hampton to like Dairy Queen, Bishop to Burke. So everything to your right and straight ahead, Francis Park, Wilmore Park, St. Raphael, St. Gabriel's. Now you make a left somewhere like at Goethe, Rosa Goethe, then it goes up to Kings Highway. So you'll have Our Lady of Sorrows, Loughborough, the Quick Trip, all the way to the county. But now you make a left on Kings Highway, and you head all the way to Chippewa, like Planet Fitness, There's another restaurant there. Then you make a right at that corner. Then you go to Morgan Ford, and then you make a right turn. So where Beeville Mill is, west of it. So at Morgan Ford, you go straight down to the St. Louis County line again. So everything like on the Haven side, the restaurant called the Haven, on that side of Morgan Ford would be Ward 2.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, you kind of answered it there, but you know, why should people get out, and like, why is it important that they pick their alderman?
Well, if you want change, you know, you need to just listen. Like I tell a lot of people, just, if anything, close your eyes, open your ears, and just listen to what the candidates are saying, what their passion is, what the direction they want to take everyone, where they came from. You know, where were they before alderman, or prior to running for alderman? What's their stake in the game? What's their finish line on doing this? You know, as like my opponent, that you've been here for 6 years. What have you done? You can't say now in 2023, I'm going to do A, B, and C, because, okay, you could have did that yesterday, last month, 2 years ago, 6 years ago. So a lot of politicians who, you know, become alderman, mayor, or whatever position they have, it always seems like at the end, when it's re-election time, they want to tell you what they want to do. And it ought to be, what have you done? I mean, you should bring a huge book bag or books and be able to plop it down on a table and be like, this is what I did. You know, same as when I was on the police force. I mean, I could have walked anywhere I went in the city, my head held high, and the neighborhood stabilization people, the block captains, and the citizens would have told you exactly what I did. Going from even nuisance properties, you know, and people just wanted their voice to be heard. I mean, at one time, being in narcotics, I was responsible, my partner and I, was to handle all the narcotic complaints citywide. And that's a lot of complaints that come in. And some, you know, you weed them out. You listen to them, you call the people back, you check the computer. And sometimes, you know, if you have a rapport with the other officers and they respect you, I could call like you guys are partners, and you're in a district, I can say, hey, Jack and Jack, I'm having some complaints in the 2600 block of Accomack of this. Here's the house. Would you look at it for me? Yeah, I'll do that. So then I call the people back and say, hey, there's someone looking at this house, and I'll get back with you. Not that I have to be hands-on on everything, but if you're that guy that could also assign different people and get other people involved, that on the end of the day, that's what makes everything successful.
So having that rapport with police officers is probably, I mean, almost essential as an alderman. Is that fair to say?
Oh, it's very important. I was talking to someone today about that. If you're an alderman, you should have a trust where your citizens are calling you, your constituents are calling you. You should know, you should have an open relationship with the EMS, with the fire department, and with the police department. So when they have problems, they could call you. And it can stay confidential, but you're going to know the facts. I mean, this is your ward. These people need to trust you. So then come in with the facts, then you could go downtown or whoever needs to be addressed and say it in a professional, but have the facts like, hey, this needs to be done. When we know that there's only sometimes 3 EMS trucks working in the entire city, I mean, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And an older person, whether I'm in Ward 2 and someone in Ward 1 or 4 or 5 has, you know, a concern about this, they could still reach out if they trust me and let me know. It's being a metropolitan police officer, and I was assigned to 3rd District, didn't mean I just had to handle stuff in the 3rd District. I handled stuff in the entire city because I'm a metropolitan police department, but I was assigned to the 3rd District. As an alder person, as an alderman of Ward 2, I would still be an alderman for the entire city. I'd work for City Hall, so I could go all over and just listen to people what they're saying. But so to say, my district, my ward would be Ward 2. So being with the police officers and knowing that there's only one guy working, but they have 4 guys on the duty sheet, say working, but the other 3 actually called in on vacation, whatever, but they're still written down. So if the outside sees, oh, we have a full shift here, it shows it on paper. reality-wise, and I'd even go up there at nighttime. We know there's only one, then, hey, let's check it out. And there is only one. Now, how is that safety to the officer and safety to our citizens if we only have one officer? Now, you should have that open relationship where all of these entities, even the forestry, the parks, should be able to have a voice and call someone that's in that leadership role to help them out.
So we had, on a podcast just about a week or so ago, we had Officer Tom Lake on with us, and he was talking about, he was saying even since he's no longer been a policeman, how you always have to be, you're always breaking things down, or you're always aware, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking how, and I don't want to speak for you too much, but for a guy to have that kind of mindset of always being aware of what's going on around him, a guy who, you mentioned having a sense of humor, being able to communicate with people, being able to communicate with a wide variety of people, not being stuck in one demographic or whatever that might be. A guy who's always aware, who's able to vocalize and listen to what he's picking up on and what he's giving back to people. What else do you want? A fresh face, someone who has a new, motivated ambition for change, and who can communicate and is always picking up and trying to find something that's better. I'm kind of, that's what I see, but I'm like,
right. No.
What else would you want than a guy who's got that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that I
agree, and that's
that's what I see.
So those are qualities that I think you need, and that brings success to being an older person.
I think in today's culture, the general sense is to look at politicians and assume that they're all corrupt, or that they're all work out for themselves. They don't get anything done, and that could just be because people who are searching for positions of power have those tendencies, or it could be that people go in with good intentions and the bureaucracy beats them down. But for you, what are some precautions you would take to make sure that you didn't fall victim to that?
Well, again, it's kind of what I mean. It's out there, and it was the same with the police force. I mean, I've been in houses where there's $500,000 and 10-20s of kilos and jewelry or whatnot, and it's at the end of the day, you have to figure if you're going to be that person to go down that road, or you're going to stay where you're at and do the job that you wanted to do from the very beginning. I've been in those predicaments before, and I've seen the opportunity that it could have been there, but it just wasn't me. That wasn't how I was raised. And again, it all goes back to, well, I guess how strong you are as a person is your faith, and just how your parents, like I could say for me, was with my parents. Even as an adult, are you going to disappoint them at the end of the day because of some tarnish that you wanted to do because of one fast greed or something? And then with people wise, I mean, it's you already see everyone preying on a lot of these neighborhoods out there. It's so frustrating when like our mayor today, she, as Tashara Jones, she ran off of hoping the north side, and that was not a secret, which is fine. Everyone on the south side even said, yes, north side needs help, so go ahead, do it. But I mean, with my construction company, I've probably done more work up there, in the time that she's been here than what she has done up there, and she's failing, her own city on whatever reasons why she's doing it. But it's, so it's, I guess I wouldn't be putting myself in that predicament, if it's there.
And being or what I could see too is, as far as avoiding getting wrapped up into things, being a politician, right? Being a guy who's from the neighborhood too, you're always going to have that pride of, ultimately it's the neighborhood above, how do I look as, how's my image? Am I doing all the things that fit right into what a politician should be doing? Being a police officer in the area in the past, growing up, going to high school in the area, ultimately you're going to be like, this is where I grew up. I take pride in giving back to the community, right?
Yes. I mean, every morning it starts with Ward 2, but then it's just, as you guys know, it's a city thing too. It's a pride. You're from the city, born and raised. You don't want to leave here.
Right.
And it's just, you guys are way too young for this, but it's like the movie called The Bad News Bears. You know, there was a kid named Tanner, and they were losing. It's a baseball team that was the worst team ever.
Yeah,
and
I'm familiar.
At the Well, they wanted to call the game at the Astrodome, and Tanner picks up second base. He's like, it's not over, because he had faith in his team, and he knew that they could win even if they couldn't, So I'm Tanner picking up second base saying, it's not over. We could do this, guys. Let's just stay for the fight, but you need someone that's going to be in office in the position to actually fight for us in a serious fight, not for our own personal gains. I mean, we got to look at it as a community. Like you just said, it's pride. It's, it's a community, and then it's a city. It's just a city thing.
A lot of people think that the city can't be saved right now. I mean, it seems like it's in shambles. What are the main things that we need to be focusing on in the city of St. Louis?
Well, first would be voting. March 7th, we need to vote the right people in. Ward 2 would be Phill Menendez. We get the leaders who support our first responders, who support the police, and the police are protecting our communities. Communities want to be spoken for. They want, the leaders to do right by them. So if we can start calling people out, holding them accountable, starting from, let's change on this automatic race here, and then that we'll see what the mayor's doing. And, I can't change what she's doing, but I can sure bring it to the attention of you guys. And then we call out Kim Gardner's office. I can't get her out of office, but I could bring up stuff and bring victims to light that, when they're a person that, they're assailant or whatever should be in jail and they're not, as a leader, ask them if they want to come forward with me. I mean, there's more people, majority, that want to be loud, and I think they're almost there. We just all have to be loud together and say that we're fighting this fight, that we're not going to let the small, loud minority come in and take our city away, because a lot of them were never even from this city. They're moving from all over to take over our city, and, we need to step up and we need to take this city back. And I know we can, and it's got to start with the election.
100%. And you might have answered it a little bit there, but what does the city need to do to attract businesses and keep businesses?
First, it all comes to safety. When Centene leaves and they're in Clayton and they feel that Clayton's bad because we have so much negative, which we should, negative press. Like, everyone should know about the crime going on, but we also have a lot of positives here. If we could change this around, St. Louis should be the most thriving city there is. And we got the highways, the railways, we got the waterways, we got the sky, the airports. We have all the best things that St. Louis has to offer, but we just had at least 500 companies leave last year. We had over 18 police officers leave since 2023. We're not getting them back. Like, there are guys with 5 years, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years that are leaving, going to look at greener pastures to other departments because of our leaders here. And those are officers that take so much experience with them. Mm-hmm. So we need to keep as many officers we can. We need to get, more officers that are not the ones just filling the application list, because of our human resources at City Hall isn't the same as what the human resources for the police department was. Like, we had high standards because you're one of the best police departments in the country. Our dispatchers, we had high standards. You had at least take a typing test for 30 seconds, or for a minute, you had to type at least 30 words. There's no typing tests now when city took over. But yet people say they want to help the 911 system out. Well, if they don't go downtown and visit the 911 system and see what's broken with it, and then actually just go to the department over in City Hall to see why Human Resources is failing our dispatchers and failing our police department, then that's not going to get fixed. So it has to start within the same building where everyone's all, I guess their part-time offices are at this time, at City Hall. But we go with city, we get safety first. We can at least bring people. People are afraid to come here in St. Louis County because they're like, oh, my car's going to get broken into at the Blues game. Then they come here and it gets broken into at the Blues game.
Right.
You might as well go play the lottery. You got a better chance to have your car broken into than you do, winning the scratch off. So until we get control of our crime, it's going to be impossible to get anyone here. And I can't blame them. And again, it's with our leaders and it's our circuit attorney's office.
Speaking to the state taking control of the police, what do you think that's going to do?
I don't know. Politics plays a part, or I guess is going to play part of this, but who has more steam? Is the city going to do corrupt ways to keep the city under their control? If you're asking me, what am I for? I'm for state control 100% every day of the week. And do I think the city should be controlled of the police department? Yes, I do, because it's all a city entity, city police and the City Hall. When you have that much corruption going on in one building at City Hall and it's suffocating the police department, there's a problem. And they're fighting tooth and nail to keep the city police. But what have they done pro-city police? That what they've done for the police. So you need the outside entity for the state, where they want to give us back to a money scale for, let's just say, 1,100 officers. Tashara Jones already cut that down to like 900 officers. So they're taking, like they're suffocating the police department. They took, as I was talking earlier, to Human Resources. They're hiring who they want. There's 30 to 40 applications for people who want to be a dispatcher, but they're 1 month, 2 months old. Then they send them over to dispatch. Well, if you're only paying these guys $17-18 an hour, they don't got 30 days to wait. They're going with other jobs. But there are probably people that are ready for a job at that time. So you would think you'd send them over and then hurry up and try to get them hired. But it's like they don't care. So yes, I believe wholeheartedly that the state needs to step in and take control of our police department.
Yeah, I find it interesting because I think of this analogy, and maybe this is terrible, but if you had a serious electrical or plumbing issue in your house, and you knew you wanted to get the job done right.
Electrical, huh?
I should have said, let's go.
No, you're good.
Yeah, whatever. Plumbing. We'll go plumbing. Right as I always slip up one time on the podcast. Oh, they cut that one out. But let's say you have a serious plumbing issue at your house or something like that, and you knew you were going to get the job done at the highest level of work, and you knew it was going to get solved, and you wouldn't have the issue again. You'd be willing to pay the higher price to get that job done correctly. Right?
Correct.
So you think about police too. If you look at it the same way, if you're training these officers well, you're employing them that want to be there, that want to serve a policeman like you were. Why would you not pay them if you know these are the candidates and the guys that are going to do this level of work that's going to fix that plumbing issue? If you're thinking about that, right?
Right.
I don't know. I expected it to sound way smarter when I said it. But.
No, it did. I mean, that's the problem. It's actually, you would think would be the obvious, right?
Right.
So why City Hall is doing that, not to us, not to the police, but actually, why are they doing it to you guys? Why are they doing it to your community with, destroying our city? That's the question. That should be the question given to our leaders. Why are you doing this to us? Like, we want to have a great city here. Everyone, the majority of the city residents and businesses are trying to work together to bring this city together, and they're fighting for it, and they're doing great things, and they keep putting a great effort into it. But yet, why? Just to get, kind of shot down at City Hall. You think at that time that they should be extending their arms and saying, we're going to help you. Let's do this.
The leadership seems to be more about symbolic victories than actual impactful victories for our city.
It is. So my dad used to say, like leadership, it could be that 0.01%, and we could all be sergeants here, and there's a lot of guys, let's just go back to the police force. We could all sit here and be sergeants, and it's like a pay raise, and, you could just drive around and just tell people what to do or whatnot. But it's that 0.1% when you have to make a call where no one else, you're going to be by yourself making that call, makes you that leader. If you could stand up in front of everybody and make that call, that's what earned the stripes or, the commander of other ranks as a leader. So it's easy to say you are that leader, but when you have to actually make the call that you're going to be standing by yourself, the one that stands out and does that is the one you look at and be like, that's who I want, battling for us.
You guys got that resume. Because anybody can say it, like you said, but
right
when you got that resume, that's showing that you've done it.
Track record, yeah.
Yeah, that track record. That you're not afraid to be the guy to step up.
Right. And you could do it professional and bring facts, but, still stick up for, let's just stay with Ward 2, stick up for our constituents. There's so much stuff going on downtown that they're taking from our ward, and we're not being spoken up for. And I think that it's time that Ward 2, the new Ward 2, has someone who's going to fight for their constituents. No matter if they get thrown stuff at them like, oh, you're doing it because you're racist or you're this or you're that, to throw stuff just to make them cower down or, just to back them, be like, okay, I'm so sorry I spoke up. I'll be quiet now. I'll be a follower. No, you need someone to stand up there. And it's not because, the races or whatever, because I've been there. I've been in communities where the police are the only white guys there, besides the people coming up buying drugs, and that became our life, became our community. So for other people to say, to keep us from being loud here to help out our constituents, it shouldn't happen. So we need someone that could do that could stand up for us here. And no matter what City Hall or these smaller groups that are acting loud throw at us, to say we're not going to take it. And then eventually the whole city's not going to take it. We're ready to move forward. But we'll see March 7th, if people get out of their house and go to the polls to vote. Citywide, just not here.
Where the city stands as it is today, where Ward 2 stands as it is today, if everything goes according to plan and everything that you want to get achieved happens in the next 4 years, what does the city look like in 4 years from now compared to today?
4 years from now, I guess smile on people's faces, more residents, more businesses, and not just residents, more families stay here instead of knowing that they got to take their family, take the kids and move out to the county to be safe. Knowing that, if Ward 2 becomes successful, then so could Ward 1, so could the other surrounding wards, and then it goes all the way to the entire city. Because I could help here in Ward 2, but yet there's other boards you could sit on. And if there's 14 of us down in City Hall, we're going to be overlapping and helping on bigger situations that are going on citywide. So if we become successful, then you see, 4 years, you hope you see more people being able to come to a Cardinals game and Blues game without fearing for their lives, that maybe the other leaders look and see the direction that the people want. So either other people become, get elected in those spots, or if they decide to change for the positive of our city, then 4 years, they got the power to, to make downtown better, to kind of unite our entire city. So right now, I just could think of, help out my community first, and then have it branch from there.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Everyone get ready. Jack Ryan's about to make a point here. But no, just talking about safety, right? I think if they talk about athletes, when athletes play loose, they perform better, right?
Right.
So when you're in your daily life, if you try to bring it back to like athletics, if you feel safe and you're able to walk around with your kids, you're willing to expand your business and you're loose and you feel safe, then just imagine if we're a team that's hitting 250 right now, we start hitting 310 because we're playing loose.
Right.
Just imagine the production that can come from that.
That's perfect. Right? That's my answer for what you should.
Thank you.
That's all. Well, yes, that's exactly right.
It's true though, right? I mean, when you're able to kind of just relax and let whatever you're trying to do, when you let it happen and you put the effort forth there, but you're playing loose, beautiful things happen.
Yeah. That's totally correct.
Amen. Phil, you had sent me something that you wanted to talk about. What did you want to talk about specifically?
My opponent, the guy I'm running against, wants, and he's going to run his campaign the way he wants, and he's asking the city, I think, for like $35 donation to help bring awareness to the officers that want raises or the firemen and talk about EMS and stuff, and which is fine, but what I bring to the people is that money's great, but I don't want your money. I need your vote. He's been there for 6 years to back the police. It's easy to stand next to the police for, let's say, his first 4 years because the city was actually doing pretty good. And people loved their police, loved having them out in the community. And it wasn't a problem. We weren't leaving at that time until the leadership started changing. And then that's why the police ended up leaving and why they're still leaving. There's no one backing them. It doesn't take money. It's all fine and dandy to scream or, put papers out every day saying, I back the police. I want them to get a raise. But if you don't have control of that raise, you could say it all day long. But people need to know too, it's not the job of the alder people to give the police raises. Now, should you be vocal for them all day long? Yes, all day long. You should stand and scream and get the constituents behind you to say, give our police officers raises. That's what they need, and we want it now. We don't want it. Don't hold this overhead until the next election. Don't hold the firemen's pension that we might pass it until after the election. If you're going to do it, do it. Well, why didn't you help 6 years ago? Because I've seen the fire pension. There's been 4 or 5 other people that were aldermen or the president of the board promise the firemen stuff, but they only come at the time of election. Here's what I say to the firemen too. I'm not going after your pension. I'm not going to be your enemy in there. And the reason why, because I get a pension just like you have a pension. You know what I mean? So I understand that pension pays for my mortgage. They pay for the insurance of my car. They pay our family and, put food on the table. These other aldermen or politicians, they all have real career jobs that have pensions from that career. The only time they bark or want to help us with our pension is during election time. They have no idea what it is to be a paycheck away from being homeless because of what we make, either pension or make at this time hourly or, salary. So don't come at this time of the game and say, I'm behind our first responders and, I need more money because there's 3 candidates and I'm going to need help to advertise. Well, I don't have the money. I don't have the big establishment, what I'm told, behind me, but I have the people, and I'm going to get the constituents. And I go door to door, and people know me I got ladies calling me, the moms or grandmas calling me. They knew me since I was a little kid from Sorrows to come and put a sign up because I still live in the neighborhood. That's who I have behind me. So the village and everyone else, if they go and show up and vote today, and that's free, but it'll be priceless. And I'm not going to be able to cure or help or do everything, but I'll be there and I'll try my best from day one as I get into office to do the best that I can till my 4 years is up to make us successful here in Ward 2.
I find it interesting. You mentioned day one, right? I always wonder what's gonna allow a guy to day 50. You know what I'm saying? Like what? Because everyone mentions day one, right? Which obviously shows you're gonna take initiative right from the get go. But your experience in the police force, right, might be something that motivates you to keep pressing the gas down come day whatever day 100, right? And I think that's something I might see, that whatever level of politics it might be, is how many of these people day one are still, when things kind of ease off a little bit and the attention and the race isn't as strong and you're settled in your office, how many people are going to still have that day one kind of drive, and what's going to allow them to do that? And nothing would be a better reason to do that than a guy who's been there himself.
And so in October 91, my day one was being a 911 dispatcher. Until 2012, all because of an electrocution, forced me off the job, made my day one to 23 years. But yet I'm off the job, and I'm still the voice of the police if they need someone to talk for them, because they'll get in trouble if they stand up for themselves. I'm the voice of our community when all this crime's happening, and I just want to tell them ways to kind of educate them on how to be safe, on how to tell their family members, kids, wives, daughters, and even themselves on how to protect themselves, or just be alert of what's going on. My day one after that never ended, and I don't have to fight this fight. I could either move out to the county, or I could just sit in my house and just enjoy the stuff that I have. But I'm showing everyone that I never quit. I never quit fighting the fight. I just need to be, if they wanted me to continue on another level, then I have to be back in the game to be put in City Hall to fight on that level at that time. And then I guarantee my days won't end 1 to 50 to 100. It's going to keep going until, but see, that's when that's your life, the community, then that's true. I mean, that's your heart. That's what you believe in. And that's, like I said earlier, I'm a millionaire when it comes to that. It's not because of money. No one does the police or first responders, EMS, fire because they want to be rich. You just do it because that's where you're out there in the community and you know where you want to be. Just like, a guy that's in business that is with numbers, is a bank, maybe a comptroller or something else. Mine's the community, which when you ask, what does an alderman do? An alderman does exactly on the stuff that we discussed within the community and that are with the people person. So
I've asked you everything I've got to ask. Do you have anything more, Jack?
So Keith Hernandez. No, I'm gonna beat that joke till it's dead. No, nah. First time really sitting down and talking to you, and dude, I can sense the passion from across the room, man. I can tell what you say is true, and I can tell you're fired up about it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, guys, on talking to me.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. That's it. Roll credit. That's all she wrote. Roll the credits, baby.